I discovered my assistant Emma had been secretly recording every phone call I made for 8 months. She thought she was building a case to get me fired and take my position. What she didn't know was that I'd been feeding her exactly the information I wanted her to hear, and her recordings were about to become evidence of something much bigger. My name is David Thornton. I'm 35 years old and work as Regional Sales Director for Vanguard Financial Solutions in Chicago. For 3 years, I'd built our Midwest division from a struggling outpost into the company's most profitable region. My success had made me enemies, and one of them was sitting right outside my office. Emma Castellano had been my assistant for 18 months. On paper, she was perfect. MBA from Northwestern, impeccable references, and the kind of polished professionalism that impressed executives. In reality, she was a corporate spy with ambitions that far exceeded her current position. The first sign something was wrong came during a client meeting in February. I was discussing confidential pricing strategies with a major account when the client mentioned details I'd never shared with anyone except Emma. The client had referenced specific internal concerns I'd only discussed in private phone calls. Emma had no authorization to contact clients directly, and she certainly shouldn't have known about confidential strategy discussions. I began paying closer attention to Emma's behavior. She had a habit of lingering near my office during phone calls, always with a plausible excuse, organizing files, watering plants, or delivering documents that could have waited until later. More concerning was her sudden interest in my schedule. Emma started asking detailed questions about my meetings, who I was calling, and what projects I was working on. She framed it as being thorough, but thoroughness doesn't require knowing the personal details of every conversation. The breakthrough came when I noticed Emma's phone behavior. She kept her device face down on her desk during my calls, positioned at an angle that would capture sound from my office. When I tested this theory by making a deliberately loud call, Emma's phone screen lit up with what appeared to be a recording app. That's when I realized what was happening. Emma wasn't just eavesdropping on my conversations, she was recording them. I could have confronted her immediately, but that would have been amateur hour. Instead, I decided to conduct a little experiment. For the next 2 weeks, I carefully monitored what information leaked after my recorded calls. Every detail Emma captured somehow found its way to my biggest rival in the company, Regional Director Trevor Mills from the Atlanta office. Trevor had been pushing for a promotion to National Sales Director, the same position I was being considered for. He'd been systematically undermining my performance reviews and questioning my methods during executive meetings. Now I understood how he was getting his ammunition. Emma wasn't just recording my calls out of curiosity. She was feeding information directly to Trevor, probably in exchange for a promise of advancement when he got promoted. But instead of stopping her, I decided to give Emma exactly what she wanted to hear. I began staging phone calls specifically for her benefit, conversations where I appeared to criticize company policy, where I seemed to reveal confidential client information, where I sounded unprofessional or incompetent. Each performance was carefully crafted to sound authentic while actually being completely fabricated. I discussed fake client complaints, invented conflicts with other departments, and created fictional scenarios where I appeared to be violating company policies. Emma recorded everything eagerly, probably thinking she was building an airtight case against me. What she didn't know was that I was building a case against her. Every staged call was documented with timestamps and transcripts. I installed my own recording equipment to capture Emma's reactions and her subsequent communications with Trevor. I even created fake email accounts and phone numbers to make my staged conversations appear more legitimate. The elaborate deception required careful planning. I had to ensure my fake conversations sounded realistic enough to fool Emma, while being obviously fabricated to anyone who investigated later. I researched actual company policies to create plausible violations, studied client communication patterns to craft believable complaints. and even practiced different vocal tones to make my staged frustrations sound authentic. Emma fell for every single trap. She documented my fabricated policy violations, recorded my invented client conflicts, and transmitted every piece of false information directly to Trevor's team. Meanwhile, I was documenting her illegal recording operation with the same precision I used for legitimate business investigations. Phone logs, email traces, meeting schedules, and surveillance footage all painted a clear picture of corporate espionage. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for Emma to spring it. The opportunity came in early May. The company announced that the national sales director position would be filled by the end of the month, and candidates would present their cases to the board of directors. Trevor scheduled his presentation for May 15th. I was scheduled for May 17th. 2 days before Trevor's presentation, Emma made her move. She entered my office with newfound confidence, closing the door behind her as if she owned the place. "David, I need to speak with you about something important," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "What's on your mind?" "I've been documenting some concerning behavior patterns in your work performance. I think the company should be aware of these issues before making any promotion decisions." I leaned back in my chair, feigning concern. "What kind of issues?" Emma pulled out a tablet and opened what appeared to be a meticulously organized case file. "You've been sharing confidential client information with unauthorized parties, criticizing company policies during business calls, and making statements that could create legal liability for the firm. That's a serious accusation, Emma. Do you have evidence?" "I have recordings of your phone calls spanning the past 8 months. Your own words demonstrate a pattern of unprofessional and potentially illegal behavior." I studied her face carefully. Emma looked confident, even triumphant. She thought she was holding a winning hand. "I see," I said slowly. "And what do you plan to do with these recordings?" "I've already shared them with the appropriate parties. The board will be reviewing the evidence before making their promotion decision." "The appropriate parties?" "Human resources and senior management." I nodded thoughtfully. "Emma, I need to ask you something directly. Did you record these calls without my knowledge or consent?" Emma's confidence flickered for just a moment. "I documented conversations that took place in the workplace. Illinois is a one-party consent state, so—" "Actually," I interrupted, "Illinois requires consent from all parties to record a conversation. What you're describing is illegal wiretapping." The color drained from Emma's face. "But you were in the workplace, using company equipment. My office phone calls are considered private communications. Recording them without consent is a felony under Illinois law, punishable by up to 3 years in prison." Emma stared at me, finally understanding the legal quicksand she'd walked into. "But the information you shared was—" "Emma, I need to tell you something. Every single conversation you recorded over the past 2 months was staged, specifically for your benefit." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "I discovered your recording operation in February. Since then, I've been feeding you carefully crafted disinformation designed to test your loyalty and document your illegal activities." I opened my own laptop and showed her a folder labeled Counterintelligence Operation. "These are transcripts of every fake conversation you recorded, along with timestamps showing when you transmitted the information to Trevor Mills. I also have evidence of your unauthorized communications with clients and your attempts to access confidential files." Emma's hands began shaking as she processed the full scope of her situation. "The recordings you thought were evidence of my misconduct are actually evidence of your criminal behavior. You've committed wiretapping, corporate espionage, and conspiracy to commit fraud." "You can't prove I was working with Trevor," she whispered. "Actually, I can." I played a recording of Emma's phone call with Trevor from the previous week, where they discussed strategy for using my leaked information in his board presentation. Emma's voice came through the speakers clearly. "Trevor, I have the Henderson account information David shared during his Tuesday call. He admitted the client is considering switching to our competitor because of pricing issues. Trevor's voice responded. Perfect. I'll bring that up as an example of David's account management failures. Emma's face went completely white. You recorded my calls too? I recorded criminal conspirators discussing their illegal activities. That's completely legal under Illinois law. Emma slumped into her chair, finally understanding the full scope of her situation. If watching elaborate corporate espionage schemes backfire spectacularly makes your heart race, hit subscribe, because Emma's about to learn that some people are much better at playing the long game than others. What happens now? She asked. That depends on you. I can either call the police and have you arrested for felony wiretapping, or you can help me finish this operation. What do you mean? Trevor's presentation is tomorrow. He's going to stand in front of the board and present stolen information as evidence of my incompetence. When he does, he'll be committing conspiracy to commit fraud using illegally obtained evidence. Emma stared at me. You want me to let him destroy himself? I want you to document exactly how he uses your illegal recordings. Then we'll have evidence of the entire conspiracy. The next morning, Emma sat in the boardroom with a hidden recording device capturing every word of Trevor's presentation. As predicted, he used the fabricated information from my staged calls to argue against my promotion. Trevor's presentation was masterful in its deception. He had prepared detailed charts and graphs based on Emma's false intelligence, creating what appeared to be a comprehensive analysis of my performance failures. He cited specific dates, referenced particular client interactions, and presented a compelling case for why I was unsuitable for promotion. Board Chairman Robert Hayes looked intrigued by Trevor's evidence. The documentation appeared thorough and professional, exactly the kind of data-driven analysis the board expected from senior candidates. Trevor concluded his presentation with confidence, clearly believing he had delivered a fatal blow to my promotion chances. Hayes asked how Trevor had obtained the recordings. Trevor glanced at Emma, claiming they came through normal workplace monitoring and documentation. Hayes inquired about the authenticity of the recordings. Trevor insisted they were completely authentic, demonstrating my unsuitability for promotion. After Trevor left, Hayes turned to Emma and asked if she had any additional information about the recordings. Emma looked at me, then back at Hayes. Yes, sir. I need to report a serious legal violation. For the next hour, Emma documented the entire operation. The illegal recordings, the conspiracy with Trevor, the months of corporate espionage designed to undermine my career. Hayes listened without interruption, occasionally taking notes. When Hayes asked if Emma understood the legal implications, she confirmed her awareness of the felony charges she faced. David, were you aware of this surveillance? I discovered it in February and conducted a counterintelligence operation to document the full scope of the conspiracy. I showed Hayes the evidence files I'd compiled, the staged conversations, the documented leaks, the recorded communications between Emma and Trevor. This is extraordinary, Hayes said. You essentially ran a double-agent operation inside your own office. I needed to understand who was behind the information leaks and how they were planning to use the stolen data. Hayes reviewed the evidence for several minutes, studying the timestamps, analyzing the communication patterns, and examining the documented conspiracy. Hayes confirmed that Trevor's presentation had been based entirely on fabricated information that I had staged specifically to test Emma's loyalty. Ms. Castellano, you're terminated immediately. Security will escort you from the building. You should expect to hear from law enforcement and the company's legal department. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. David, I'm postponing the promotion decision until we can resolve this matter fully. However, I want you to know that your handling of this situation demonstrates exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need in senior leadership. 3 weeks later, Trevor was terminated for conspiracy to commit fraud and corporate espionage. Emma was arrested and charged with felony wiretapping. She eventually pleaded guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence and community service. The board of directors was so impressed with my counterintelligence operation that they created a new position for me, Director of Corporate Security, with responsibility for preventing exactly the kind of internal espionage Emma had conducted. My first assignment was developing new protocols for detecting and preventing corporate spying. The irony wasn't lost on me. The investigation revealed that Emma and Trevor's conspiracy had been more extensive than initially suspected. They had targeted 3 other regional directors with similar surveillance operations, stealing confidential information and undermining careers across multiple divisions. Emma's illegal recording operation had captured thousands of hours of private conversations, creating a massive security breach that exposed client information, strategic plans, and personnel decisions to unauthorized parties. 6 months later, I received a letter from Emma's lawyer asking if I would provide a character reference for her sentencing hearing. I declined. Emma had spent 8 months secretly recording my conversations, stealing confidential information and conspiring to destroy my career. She'd chosen to become a spy rather than an assistant, and spies face consequences when their operations are discovered. But I learned something valuable from the experience. The most dangerous enemies are often the ones sitting closest to you, and the most effective defense is sometimes giving them exactly what they think they want to hear. Sometimes the best way to catch a spy is to become a better spy yourself. Emma thought she was recording evidence of my downfall. Instead, she was documenting her own. The corporate world is full of people who mistake proximity for opportunity, who confuse access with authority, and who believe that recording someone's words gives them power over their fate. Emma discovered that the most dangerous target is someone who knows they're being watched and decides to give the watcher exactly what they expect to see. Sometimes the best revenge isn't hurting those who hurt you. Sometimes it's simply letting them hurt themselves.